And if you're Keith Poche, you better not be leaving the water in that fine gator tracks of yours. Breaking news. Randy Blockett and I finally agree on something.
Keith uses his creativity and his ingenuity to access areas that other people can't reach or don't want to reach.
We'll get those life vests zipped in clips, strap down those rods, and stow away those tackle bags because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bass to Anglers podcast. I'm your host, Keith Nicewanger, and I hope this episode finds you with 5 for 25 in your live well. But you better have your fishing license, you better have proof of insurance, and you better not be fishing in an off-limits area. And if you're Keith Poche, you better not be leaving the water in that fine gator tracks of yours. Special thanks to our partners who make this podcast possible. Basco Fishing is the official wardrobe partner of the Bass to Anglers podcast. Basco Fishing is making bass fishing fun again. Check out all the latest styles and all the latest colors by going to the website bascofishing.com. Of course, you know we are the Western representatives for ducket fishing, pro-driven rods, reels, and baits. Ducket fishing is coming to the West, and if you haven't seen them yet, you soon will. New independent dealerships are popping up all the time. Check out the ducket fishing lineup of pro-driven rods, reels, and baits by going to their website, ducketfishing.com. Of course, you know about the Bait Pop Advantage Live Scopers, a live electronics intensifier combined with the original fish formula that has to be seen to be believed. You can see your fish, now you can see your baits. Check out their website by going to theoriginalfishformula.com and find out what Bait Pop can do for you. Hey Keith, what's with all these shameless plugs? Well, you know, we have people that are our partners and we want to be able to do well by them. We want to be able to share information with you. So that's what's with all these shameless plugs. The Western Fishing Network is our parent company, And all the things that we do with the Bass Wranglers podcast and everything that's associated with that really comes down from the top, the Western Fishing Network. The Western Fishing Network is proud to announce that we have been named the Western representatives for Caymas Boats. Are you thinking about a new bass boat in 2023? Reach out to us. DM me on Instagram, Bass Wranglers Podcast. Love to hear from you. Or go to CaymasBoats.com and build your new Caymas today. Fasten your seatbelts, everybody. Caymas Boats is coming to the West, and you're going to see a lot of these boats on the water very soon. It's been a minute since I've posted an interview, and we've got a great one today. So much has happened since the last time we spoke, and a lot of it's been fairly controversial. There's been a number of disqualifications in our sport, some that could have been avoided. Actually, all of them could have been avoided if you think about it. But like so many things in life, it comes down to communication. Communication between organizations and anglers, communication between anglers and organizations. So many of these things that we're going to talk about on the show today could have been avoided. Breaking news. Randy Blockett and I finally agree on something. Randy is always entertaining. You know, we talk about Randy's YouTube channel on this show quite often. I always struggle to agree with the things he says. Randy and I are about as opposite on views from live scope to life, I guess. But we do agree on something this week, and I'm pretty excited about it. We both feel that Keith Poche's disqualification at Toledo Bend represents things that are wrong with our sport. Randy did have a few nice things to say about me, which really tugged at my heart.
You know, Keith's position on it, which he has very good points in there. If you just go to his page.
Get her done!
Keith uses his creativity and his ingenuity to access areas that other people can't reach or don't want to reach.
Okay, maybe those things were about the other Keith, but it sounded nice. Whether it's coincidence or not, I can't help but wonder if this is tied to the fact that Keith is attempting to fish both pro tours. Major League Fishing's Bass Pro Tour and the BASS Elite Series. Both organizations have language in their rules that makes it virtually impossible for a pro angler to fish both pro tours. And that's wrong. Come on, professional bass fishing. The bottom line for Keith Poche is that he probably should have communicated ahead of time with BASS. Telling them where he was planning to fish would have saved everyone the controversy. Of course, guys like me wouldn't have a lot to talk about in situations like that. So from that standpoint, from a purely selfish standpoint, I love the controversy. Maybe the bass commissioners need to require Keith Poche to file a flight plan with the organizations in future events. Folks, we have a special treat today. Ken Smith of Ken Smith Fishing is going to join us to talk about the state of bass fishing in the world today. I think you're going to find the things that he has to say to be fascinating. I know I do. I'm a big fan of his YouTube channel, Ken Smith Fishing. But first, if you like the content we provide on this channel, please hit the subscribe button now. Tell him, Larry.
Get her done!
Like this video. Leave us a comment if you're not afraid. Share this video with a friend. Share the video with an enemy. Or share this video with someone whose DMs you just want to slide into. But share this video. We are building our viewership, and your likes and your subscriptions and your comments, they're a big deal to us. Subscribe. Our guest is a veteran of the bass fishing world, having fished regionally throughout the South, including BFLs dating all the way back to 1996. He continues to chronicle his bass fishing experiences on his YouTube channel, Ken Smith Fishing, where he serves as a true guardian of the sport. A lifetime of dedication to the sport of bass fishing, holding court, calling him as he sees him, and fishing a regional event just about every weekend. Ken Smith, welcome to the Bass to Anglers podcast. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Is
that a pretty accurate description?
You know, it sounded like you made a very nice description of an old guy.
You and me both, brother.
It's like, yeah, I got the whole gray thing going on. But yeah, that's, you know, I've been doing it. I lied. I fished my first bass tournament in 1977. You had to be 16 to fish it. Yep. And I told them I was 15. So there's the start to my tournament circuit lying, breaking rules. But yes, I've been doing it a long time.
Well, I go back to just about the same time, and fell in love with the sport when I saw a young Gary Klein, about a 19-year-old Gary Klein, give a seminar in Costa Mesa, California. And I was hooked at that point. He and I are about the same age. And so I kind of feel akin to you in what you've seen over the years. And I can't wait to talk to you about some of the stuff tonight.
You know, interestingly, so I also sit on the Texas Park and Wildlife Freshwater Fishery Advisory Committee. And Gary, when we were at Athens the other day, Gary was just inducted into the Texas Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. So they had his old rappel jersey, and stick with the old 5500 in it. So Gary's been a fixture here in Texas fishing for a long time after he moved here from California.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, first of all, did you know if you Google your name, Ken Smith Bass, you get a really cool bass guitar company?
Yes,
I'm a little bit of a musician. I use that term loosely, but I'm always, I got to check out this site a little bit more in depth because some pretty good looking stuff there.
I keep thinking they'll send me one. They don't.
Yeah, they ought to. They ought to. Well, you've done it. You went out and invested in a forward-facing sonar unit so you can finally see what you've only been able to imagine in the past. You can see the fish swimming around down there. Now it's time to see your bait. Introducing Bait Pop, a forward-facing sonar intensifier. Simply rub some Bait Pop on your lure and watch that signal pop on your live electronic screen. Interested? Bait Pop contains the original fish formula and sparkle scales, so it doesn't just intensify your sonar signal, it masks your scent. It gives your bait a taste and creates a visual of scales being knocked off helpless bait fish.
Like, again, a forward-facing sonar guy, that's, if I can have that advantage, you know, to see an extra 10, 20 feet past 120 foot or whatever. Now, if I can see 140, that could be a game changer.
Look for the Bait Pop display at your favorite tackle shop or go to their website, theoriginalfishformula.com. Hey, I've really enjoyed your fishing content on YouTube for quite a while. And it seems like recently, maybe more recently, I don't know if maybe you've always done this, but it seems like there's been a little more editorial content to your postings recently. I really feel like your passion for the sport bleeds through in those moments. And I'm just wondering, is this editorial stuff a new mission, or is it kind of the same old mission?
I think it's the same old mission. I think going on the Freshwater Fisheries Advisory Committee. So at 60, I have a 2-year-old and a soon-to-be 4-year-old boys. And
that'll keep you young.
Yeah, or it'll kill you. Or it'll cause you to drink on Tuesday nights. I think it's kind of started putting things in perspective for me. I'm still hyper competitive, but I want to leave fishing our lakes, our streams, and our tournaments better than I found them.
Yeah.
So I am, and I also probably give less of a crap than I used to, Keith, about hurting people's feelings. If I see something that I think's bull, I'm going to call bull.
Yeah. So I consider myself to be, we consider our channel to be kind of an angler advocate channel. We interview pros, and when we see things that don't seem right, we certainly call them out. And I was watching your channel, and you posted a very emotional video a couple of weeks back about Baron Adams $100,000 disqualification at the Wright Patnam NPFL event. Would you mind kind of sharing some of your thoughts about that DQ?
Yeah. So, look, he broke a rule,
yeah,
completely unintentionally, and I see both sides of that. I see both sides of that issue as a term. By the way, of all the jobs you could give me in the United States, president would be the last, and the second to last would be tournament director.
Right.
As a tournament director, you cannot bend your rules, right? Your rules are your rules. And so once they discovered that he had broken a state law, he had fished without a license, in my opinion, they had to disqualify him. But, I mean, the young man had a potential. I mean, for a lot of guys, $100,000 win is, if not life-changing, certainly career-changing. And he had a career-changing moment there. And by the way, I think he handled it pretty gracefully. It didn't seem like he really pitched a fit about it, which some guys would have. We're seeing with some other people right now that have been DQ'd, which we can talk about that too. But I feel the tournament in that situation, I firmly believe, and look, we're all responsible adults, right?
Right.
I know I've got to put gas in my boat and charge my batteries before I leave the dock. That's on me. I know I got to have a license too, but still, maybe that's something you should cover in the pre-tournament meeting. Show me your license to see that you're legal. As a tournament director, maybe I say, now I really don't want that additional responsibility. You're just slowing my line down. Be a big boy and buy your own license. But I really feel for the guy, and I really feel for the tournament organization because they didn't want to do that either.
Pat Schaefer, who is a fellow Texan of yours, and I do a funny thing on this channel every once in a while. We call it the Bass Commissioners, and we look at things like this and we kind of take them apart and put them back together. And we came to the conclusion that, you and I have to upload so many certifications all the time. I mean, I got to, whether it's a Red Cross certification or something like that, I'm always having to upload something. And for an old guy like me who can barely get a Zoom link started, that's a challenge.
Right.
But why can't tournament organizations have a situation where you upload your fishing license, you upload your proof of insurance? Remember, Trey Swindle last year had that happen. Why can't we just have that in place? And who knows, maybe this will lead to that. But gosh.
But Keith, that's such a slippery slope, right? So if you do that, do I also have to upload my proof of insurance on my boat? Do I also have to upload proof that my boat is registered and in good condition? I mean, do I have to prove I have a life jacket? Do I have to prove I have a fire extinguisher? It's a slippery slope. So it's where do you draw that line in the sand?
I just don't like to see disqualifications occur when they don't have to occur. And I feel like this is something that should never happen again. I know it's happened in the past.
I know a good friend of mine, Bill Wilcox, and his partner.
What's that?
Bill Wilcox of Honey Hole TV. He and his partner got DQ'd from a championship. They won $40,000. His partner forgot to renew. It was in the fall. In Texas, your license expires September 1st. He forgot to renew it, and they lost $40,000. So it's not the first time.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to see, I mean, from an organizational standpoint, the last thing I want to do is disqualify my $100,000 winner. So I could put a couple of these things in place that might prevent this from happening in the past, happening in the future. Anyway, well, again, I was touched by your video. It made me really think about it. And who knows, maybe organizations can do something like this in the future. I mean, can you imagine this was the Bassmaster Classic or Red Crest or something like that? That could easily just as easily happen there.
It could. So, and maybe it has.
And maybe
you're right. Maybe it has. I mean, yeah. I think there is some evidence that some tournament organizations have allowed guys to pass polygraphs and still win tournaments. That some rules have been changed around that. So maybe it has, and Keith and Ken don't know about
it. Very well spoken. Good point. Good point. Do you believe in magic? You want the power, control, and casting distance of a long rod for your deep cranks, A-rigs, and glide baits, but you hate the inconvenience of storing them. Small rod lockers, 8-foot ceilings, and narrow walkways can make a long rod a real disaster. Ducket Fishing has got you covered. The Micro Magic series is unlike any rod series on the market today. Comfort grip, Fuji reel seats, micro guides for better casting, advanced sense-a-touch blanks, and a unique blank-to-blank telescoping feature that will allow your rod to fit anywhere a normal-sized rod can go. All this at a price that won't break your bank. There's no such thing as a magic bait, but there is such thing as a magic fishing rod. Micro Magic by Ducket Fishing. Pro-driven. Let's move on to Keith Poche.
Yeah, I told you from your list of questions, this was one I didn't know how I would answer.
Yeah. Well, I think I have an idea for Keith. I think Keith needs to file a flight plan with the organizations before he goes. I mean, he could have probably said, "Hey, look, I'm going to fish these areas. Am I okay?"
He certainly could have.
Yeah.
So your question was, what are my thoughts on the whole thing, and on Keith as well?
Yeah.
So I think Keith would be really entertaining of all the guys out there to have a beer with.
Yes.
I would not want to cross Keith. Keith ain't a little boy.
He's packing. I've seen that firsthand.
and to some degree, there's been some controversy around Keith around a number of things for several years, right?
Yeah.
But I look at the golf game, and although I can't stand him, Bryson DeChambeau makes the game more interesting.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I would like Keith. Keith's a guy out of Louisiana. I got a lot of Louisiana friends. I suspect we would get along great. But on this particular instance, had it been me, when I found those fish or before I went in there, I would have inquired. Now, maybe his thought was, I don't know, I'm guessing, was I would rather ask forgiveness than permission, thinking that, they'll let me get away with this, or they won't DQ me. He was wrong.
Yeah. Well, he kind of had a similar situation when he won that Open last year. Apparently, he didn't have to cross over any dams or anything like that to get in there, but it was still an area that really nobody else could get to.
Well, and if you remember, you've been around long enough. Do you remember when Blockett took his cowling, his windshield, and took the drain plug out of his boat to get under a bridge?
Yeah, and I remember David Dudley with a what's that big with a chainsaw? I remember that. Yeah.
Randy Qualls got DQ'd from a megabass here at Richland Chambers because he had a guy go cut a tree the day before the second day, and he rammed it with his boat because it was just barely on there and got in a creek, and they DQ'd him. So guys are always going to push this, and you couldn't do what Blockett did now because they made that illegal. You can't pull your drain plug. You can't dismantle your boat to get into a backwater area. This is just one of those hard ones where I think Keith probably had a sense that he could potentially get disqualified, but thought he would get away with it. And he caught the most fish, but he didn't win the tournament.
Yeah. I tell you what he is doing, though, and I got to believe that Gator Track sales are up, because for that guy that likes to do that kind of thing or wants to do that kind of thing, it's great. It's great exposure for the company.
John Cox changed the bar for what you can turn a fish out of. Yeah. I mean, he fishes. I'm sorry. I hope you're not sponsored by him, but he fishes out of a piece of junk V-hull aluminum boat. Now, they may make the best piece of junk aluminum V-hull boat there is, but it's a V-hull aluminum boat.
Yeah.
He's whooped my butt badly. So you don't have to have a $170,000 icon to go out there and compete in these tournaments anymore. And I apologize, by the way, for calling that a piece of junk. That's not fair. I've never been in one of those boats. It may be a fine riding boat. So,
well, I agree. It's certainly drawn people's attention to another possibility. You know, we've seen guys run jet drives, and we've seen guys do things like that in the past as well.
Roland Martin won
Yep.
out of a drive, literally 40 years ago.
Yep.
And everybody pitched a fit because he was running up somewhere nobody else could get to.
Yes. Yes. It's good stuff. Really good stuff.
So the answer to your question is, I I feel bad for Poche. I hate that he got disqualified. And he has made, which Iconelli did the same thing. There's two
Yes.
camps.
There's a
People
lot of
who love
Iconelli.
him.
There's a lot of Iconelli in this
Ish,
situation.
Ish Monroe. There's a bunch of these guys that Dean Rojas. You love him or you hate him. Everybody likes KVD, other than the guys he's been beating on for all those years. And for that group, there's passion, right? So
Right.
yeah, if I'm the owner of Gator Tracks, he's in another Gator Tracks next year.
Absolutely.
He's getting a paycheck from Gator Tracks every year.
Absolutely. I cannot wait till he posts his off the grid videos. That
He may
they're
cuss more than I did in my YouTube video today.
what's that?
He may cuss more than I did in my YouTube. I cussed in 500 videos. I finally cussed in a video today. So
I saw that. I
yeah,
saw that. And you know what? I think you had good reason.
yeah, I did.
I don't think those guys could have been any more unaware of themselves than they were. You
The
know.
dude, when Terry fell down, if you notice, the one guy never even looks around.
Yeah.
He just keeps fishing. He's 5 feet away, and Terry falls down. The guy never even looks over his shoulder. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And that drift took him directly to you. That's
Right.
something. So let's see if we can figure out between the two of us what is wrong with tournament fishing today and what is right with tournament fishing today. We might as well start with what's wrong. What's wrong with tournament fishing today?
You know, I really think the state of tournament fishing is in a pretty good place. It's drawing a lot of young folks, guys and girls both, which I think is really fun. We've got a number of girls competing on the individual tours here in Texas right now. We've got several trying to get on the national tours, and it will happen.
Yeah.
There will be a great female angler. I fished with a woman many years ago named Marcia Fan, who was an absolute hammer fisher person. There'll be one who gets on the elites or Major League Fishing Tour and will be competitive. And she's probably fishing right now.
Yep.
I think the tournaments are going to struggle with. I think the biggest challenge, and I'm probably going to anger a few people. I think the biggest challenge in tournament organizations right now is you can't run an organization and compete in it. You've got opposing. I don't know how to say that. If look, there were a couple of guys who didn't qualify for a tour last year, or 2 years ago, so they changed the rules so they qualified. And you can't do that. You got to set your rules and say these are the rules, and everybody's got to play by the same rules, and they're not doing that. And until they start doing that, there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be people getting their feelings hurt. But he with the money rules this sport, and that's where
Yep.
we are right.
So I have a beef with the two major organizations that seem to ignore that each other exist. This kind
We're
of
talking the PGA and Live.
Yeah, that's the one exactly. We talk about Keith Poche. He qualified for the elites and he qualified for the Bass Pro Tour. Crying out loud, let him fish them both. I want to see that. I wanted to see John Cox do that a couple of years ago because that is what fans want to see.
Yeah.
But there are so many rules that make it impossible. I get tired of seeing the Elite Series and the BPT happening at the same time. I get tired of seeing Opens and the Invitationals happen at the same time. That pretty much guarantees that guys will never have a chance to fish both tours.
Right. Yeah. And you wonder why, right? Is it just personal at this point, or is it just?
It sure feels petty. It sure feels personal. It absolutely does.
Yeah, and I agree with, from our little conversation before we started the video, that I think both the sport would be better if they got along and if you let guys fish both sides of it.
Yeah.
But I just think that's not going to happen. I think there's a lot of people at Bassmasters that are angry those guys left.
Yep.
And there's a lot of guys on Major League Fishing that thought Bassmasters wasn't treating them fairly. I was surprised this year that I really thought this year that my understanding was the Major League Fishing guys' contracts expired this year. I thought more of them would jump in the EQs to try to get back in the elites, but it doesn't appear they have. So I think they're happier than a lot of people thought they were on the Major League Fishing Tour. And I think some of that was because they created the 5 fish limit thing again.
Yeah.
Because there's certain guys that just, Todd Faircloth is not suited to try to catch 100 fish a day, trying to catch 5 big ones.
That's right. That's right.
And Hackney the same way. Now, Hackney, he jumped, but had it been a 5 fish circuit or one available to him, I'm not sure that he makes that change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're spot on with that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
But I will say the one thing I do think is wrong as I reflect on that question, you've got to be consistent in your rules, the interpreting of your rules, and who those rules apply to across the board. You can't. There's a lot of rumors about rules being broken on one of the tours, and I don't know if it's true or not. They're just rumors, but I've heard them from sources that are on those tours that sure make them seem like they're legitimate.
Yeah. Yep. Just one more time, I don't know how they do it in Texas. I know in California, the competing tournament organizations, when they want to have a tournament on a lake, they have to meet, and there's what they call a Bass Club Jamboree, where they have to meet and they draw out to decide who's going to have their event on this lake and so on and so forth. I kind of wish the big organizations would get together and decide, okay, we're going to fish this weekend. You guys are going to fish this weekend. And so we don't have competing shows basically to watch.
Yeah, well, and some of this boils down to, for example, Rayburn. There's really 2 big pavilions at Rayburn where you can launch tournaments out of. On Toledo Bend, there's one. Those are really, and there's some smaller lakes in Texas you could host 100 boat events, but if you got 200 boats in an event, those are the only 2 you could really go out of, and those venues are booked 2 years out. In Texas, there's multiple tournament circuits. There's team circuits, individual circuits, the BFLs, Major League Fishing, the Bassmaster, and then we've got on Rayburn. There is from January through April. There's pretty much a high school tournament or a college tournament every single weekend on Sam Rayburn. A lot of weekends there's 2 or 3 of them, and so those venues are booked up. It's hard to get in those lakes.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Basco Fishing Apparel now has built-in SPF 50 technology to not only keep you cool and dry, but to also help your skin stay safe from the elements while you're out there on the water. All that in colors and styles that are sure to up your game. Check out the new colors and styles by going to their website, bascofishing.com, and make bass fishing fun again. All right, we've talked about what's wrong with the sport. What's right with the sport now?
Yeah, again, I think they've done a really good job of reaching out to the youngsters. I think some of us old guys probably didn't love that initially, but we're starting to appreciate it. I think now most of us old guys are just angry they can just beat the crap out of us anytime because these kids are so good with their electronics. They're so much better than we are, and the only way to get that good is to be able to spend, I know of a kid recently who sold his boat. The boat was 14 months old. He had 800 hours on it. I can't spend, I didn't put
a lot of fishing.
Hours.
Wow.
I didn't put 800 hours on my last 5 boats.
That's a lot of fishing.
Tremendous amount of fishing. So, and the organizations have made it where they can make a living in these circuits now. So you can make this a career. You can come up through the college ranks, jump right to the pro tour, and truthfully, exactly the same thing that the PGA Tour is trying to do, right? You can now get a PGA Tour card by being one of the best collegiate players in the country.
Yeah.
They're doing kind of the same thing with the bass fishing, and I think that increases the audience. I think the live coverage increases the audience. It's killing the GDP and the rednecks in East Texas because when one of those events is on, ain't nobody working. We're all watching our screens. But I think that's what's right about it. We're getting it out to a bigger audience and to a younger audience, which we didn't do for years and years.
Yeah, you make a great point about high school and college fishing. I mean, I think of it as relatively new, but it really isn't relatively new. We're 10, 12, 14 years into at least the collegiate side of it now. And I feel like those kids that go through college, it gives them a reason to stay in school, to get through school. They don't just get better with their fishing, but they learn how to market. They learn how, they're interwoven with industry insiders as a result of all that, because there's lots of sponsorship in college. And I just think that you're right. They come out of it much more ready to be a professional than other generations did.
Well, and they also come out of it with a bigger social following. And as you and I know,
right.
in today's game, I don't care how good a fisherman you are. If you don't have a social following, if you can't sell product, whatever that product is, whether it's coffee or Lew's rods or Duckett's rods or
right.
Strike King lures or 6 cents, whatever, then you're not going to make a real good living in this business. And these kids have figured this out. I mean, open up your Facebook. Every third story is about something that kids doing fishing, or at least on mine, which is probably scary.
You talked a little bit about the live coverage. I'm a huge fan of live coverage, and I absolutely cannot get enough Score Tracker. Now, I feel like the live Score Tracker takes away from the traditional weigh-in that we grew up with, but I think it creates so much more drama and excitement and intrigue for the sport. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. And overall, I think the live coverage is really good. Every once in a while, they kind of go down rabbit trails, but if you spend 8 or 9 hours in a row online talking, you're going to go down some really strange rabbit trails.
Right.
So I enjoy it. I enjoy the color commentary. I think it's good. I think at this point, the only significant change that seems to need to occur in the bass tournaments to me is I think the payouts are still awful.
Boy, that goes without saying. How are we going to do that? How is professional bass fishing at the top upper level going to be able to be no entry fee and big prize? I mean, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? How can we get to the point where golf is? I know we don't have as many fishermen as golfers. I know that, but
yeah. I don't think we can. I mean, I don't think Rolex is ever going to be interested in sponsoring. Seriously,
yeah.
Or Red Bull. I mean, they're just not. You look at F1, how much money you spend in F1. It just doesn't have. It's a almost exclusively a U.S. sport, and it is not ideal for viewing. There's too much dead time between the excitement. Now that 4 screens or 6 screens watching guys. But even then, you go to Ross Barnett, there may be an hour, nobody catches a fish. So it's just not suited for primetime TV. And I don't think you'll ever draw the sponsors to live cast online. I don't think, I could be wrong, like you do to television broadcast. And I think some of that also, nobody outside of a very small circle in both those organizations has any idea how much money they're bringing in. But
that's true.
My sense is, and I'm making this number up, I don't think they're bringing in $100 million and paying out $10 million. I think they're bringing in $14 million and paying out $10 million. I mean, I think, whatever that number is, whether it's 100 and 140 million, I think the margins are pretty thin in the fishing world. Because there's been a couple of occasions we damn near lost some tournament organizations because I think the margins are just that thin. And I think they struggle to keep non-endemic sponsors engaged in this sport because I don't think to this day we have proved that we sell product. We don't think we ever proved that we sold Kellogg cereal for Kellogg's.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Bridgeford seems to like it. Bridgeford seems to hang in there.
Yeah.
But I happen to know that Al Bridgeford, who is the head of that team, is a big time bass fisherman. And And so that's what it takes, though, right?
I would suspect Lucas Oil's the same way. I suspect somebody way up the line at Lucas Oil is a huge endorsement. But to the other side of that coin, look, KPMG sponsored Phil Mickelson on the PGA Tour because a bunch of KPMG partners somewhere are huge golfers. So I think that's pretty common to get involved in a sport. You got somebody who's interested in that sport.
Yeah.
Maybe we just need to do a better job of identifying who those people are. And Ken Smith Fishing is always looking for sponsors. So I'm sure
that's the story of our lives, right?
Right. Hey, call us, guys. Of course, I'm still trying to find Bigfoot to get on my show. So if he ever gets on, I think I'm set.
That would be a heck of a. That would be. You know what you could do is you could get Matt Steffen to come on your show sometime, and he could tell you about the time he saw Bigfoot. That's an interesting story.
I have a great Bigfoot story from an angler everybody knows, and he will not tell the story online. And he's sworn me to secrecy. But he had one run by him in the dark one night. Matt Steffen told that story on my show one time, and it's a great story. Crazy.
I need to re-release that one, I think, because it's a pretty good
story.
Let
me know if you do. I want to hear
it. I'll send you a link to it.
Yeah, please.
So how many tournaments does Ken Smith fish every year?
Prior to COVID, probably, between Tuesday nighters and weekenders.
Yeah.
I easily fished 100 days a year, and I probably fished 20 tournaments, maybe 30 tournaments a year. That's down drastically this year. We have two little ones, and my wife had a major hip surgery, so she was on crutches all of April, and you don't leave a wife with two little kids. And we knew that, so I just planned that we weren't going to get to tournament fishing this year. And it's actually been a nice break. I'm frustrated because I can't be competitive because I'm not spending enough time on the water. But we'll get back to it. And as the boys get older, I think for sure one of them's already super competitive, and he'll want to fish too. So,
well, that's an exciting journey. I've already been through that journey and have a couple of anglers that carry on the legacy. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, right now fishing is going out in the summertime and them standing in the live well, but still we're in the boat. We're having a good time.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Ken, I appreciate you taking some time tonight to talk about these things. This was a lot of fun for me. I've enjoyed watching your YouTube channel and thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I enjoyed it. Anytime you guys want to chat, give me a holler.
I think anytime something controversial comes up, I might give you a call. Okay.
Pick me. Send me in, coach.
You got it. All right. Take care. Good night. Ken Smith has been around for a while. He is the wisdom of years. Having started this process back in the 1970s, a regional presence in the center of one of the most important bass fishing areas in the entire world, Ken Smith shapes what can largely be considered the bass fishing culture. You think about it, team tournament anglers, regional anglers, there are unspoken rules, there are unwritten rules, and Ken Smith personifies that. Really enjoyed my conversation with him today. When Ken Smith talks, I'm absolutely going to listen. Give his YouTube channel, Ken Smith Fishing, a listen. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks again for coming by and listening to what we have to say. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Larry,
get her done.
Like and subscribe. That's how I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Keith. Like and subscribe. What is this world coming to? Until next time, keep both hands on the wheels. Keep those live vests zipped and clipped. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you again very soon.